No, pjnet.tv. I forgot to draw the curtain on the broadcast. pjnet.tv. It's 9:01 p.m. here on the East Coast, and the secret curtain has been drawn. You're watching the bumper, and we have a first-time guest standing by to see us. We also have a chat room waiting to hear from our first-time guest. We're recording, streaming. We're going to do a countdown to Studio 8 starting now. Well, good evening. Welcome. This is pjnet.tv. I'm Coach Prasick. We're off to a rough start there. I thought the curtain was drawn, and you're not supposed to see anything before it's time. You know what I'm saying? But it is time to get started. I am so glad. Always, I rejoice when we have a first-time guest on our program, and I think you're going to be interested in many ways, at many levels. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring her into the hot seat, and I'm going to put the name up here, and I'm going to help you all pronounce her name. Her name is Becky Antkowiak.
Close.
That is not misspelled on your screen, folks. It's Becky Antkowiak. That W is actually a V. Instead of whiskey, it's Victor. But Becky, okay, I'm just having fun with you. Thank you so much for coming here tonight. We're anxious to hear what the Lord has put on your heart to share. But before we do that, I'd like to try to figure out how I have been blessed by being a part of the 540 Facebook group. I didn't know you were in charge of that, and I didn't know your name. How in the world did you land right there, right now?
How did I land?
Yeah,
behind your shoulder, or
yeah, you're getting kind of heavy. Okay, now, how did you and Barbara have a conversation, or wait a minute? I bet I know. I bet it was Rachel.
It was Rachel.
Rachel did it. Yeah.
So Rachel bugged me a number of times to reach out to you, and then I think she must have bugged Barbara, because then Barbara reached out to me and asked if I would be interested, and so here I am. Okay,
so Rachel, you're out there in the chat room. Your request went unheeded. So your influence now. Rachel is, I guess, someone.
Oh no, she's a very good nagger.
She's a very persistent. Maybe Rachel told Barbara to try. I don't know. I know that you have a topic. Well, here, let's go with what you want to talk about. Rachel, your face radiates a joy, but behind that joy that we all put up, there's grief. And grief has not gotten the best of you, I can tell. But grief is a part of all of our lives. How has your life been acquainted with grief, and how have you coped?
So, my sister, well, a number of ways, but most personally, my sister passed away unexpectedly. She's 4 years younger than I am, in September, and so we lost her with no warning. And then my husband's good friend, he has a number of friends, I call them all his best friends, and one of those guys got sick and was gone very quickly the same week as my sister. So it's been rough bouncing back from that, but a lot of people have wrapped around us, including the 540 community, and so it's not been easy, but it's getting better.
It's hard for me to imagine, Becky, how people get through this kind of thing if they don't have a relationship with Christ first, but secondly, a community of brothers and sisters in Christ that they're involved with on a daily and more intimate level.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, rather than talking about the grief that I've been through, I want to talk about it from a little bit different perspective. So prior to this, I really didn't know what I was going to talk about. So I had been praying that God would give me something that would help other people, and a number of people have talked about grief. And I actually asked some of my friends, hey, what would you like to hear about? And more than one said grief. And so I was praying that God would give me the right verse that would be the right thing for every person that needs to hear it. So one verse just kept coming to mind, and honestly I was like, really, that one? I just don't know. So I kept praying, and that same verse kept coming to mind. So I guess this is for whoever needs to hear it. So don't get mad, this is straight from the Bible. Are you ready? Here it is. Jesus wept.
Okay.
That's the verse. John 11:35 just kept popping into my head. And some of you know that I like to paraphrase verses in today's English, and I really just can't do much with that one.
Yeah, could you paraphrase?
2 words.
Yeah.
It is already as paraphrased as it's gonna get. So then I just kind of thought, okay, God, what do you want me to do with that? And I really got nothing. And so I was like, okay, this is it. Jesus wept. I just need to pass this on, I guess. I don't know. So I sat by myself for a little while and just tried to think through why that would be an important verse. And what I started thinking about was Jesus is our example in everything. And in a world where everyone, it seems like right now everyone is grieving, what better example could we have than Jesus in how to support our friends? So many of us have gone through very difficult things in the last year or two, and our friends and family are continuing to go through those difficult things. And recently I ran into somebody who kind of flippantly said, oh, well, it's good to go through hard things because then we know how to help other people. And I said, I appreciate what you're saying. I understand it, but I wouldn't repeat that to most people, because it doesn't, like, in the moment, in the grief, it doesn't matter. I'm not really interested in how this is going to help somebody later. But it does help us reach out to each other if we understand the grief. And the other thing that I've kind of learned above everything else is that loss is loss. I've had a number of people approach me asking about, how we're doing. And then they say, oh, well, I've lost someone too, but it's nothing like what you're going through. And I really don't think that there's any kind of scale. Like, if you have lost someone, it's loss, and you understand that at some level. And so don't ever feel like you have to apologize to your friend who's losing someone, or has lost someone, because you don't feel like you have the same level of grief. We all experience loss in very similar ways. And that's why, you hear all about the stages of grief and how we all seem to go through the same types of things. So don't feel, I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't feel that you are unqualified to help your friend who's going through grief just because it doesn't seem to be the same, amount of grief or level of grief in your mind. So I'm sure you know the story, but if you don't, you can check out John 11, but here's your nutshell, paraphrase. 3 siblings, Mary, Martha, Lazarus, they were some of Jesus's best friends. And Jesus was out of town and Lazarus got sick. And so the sisters sent Jesus a note and said, hey, your best bud is sick. Like, can you come back? So they knew who Jesus was. They knew what he could do. They had seen miracles. They probably figured, hey, Jesus is going to zip back to the village. He's going to take care of this. No problem. Instead, Jesus stayed where he was for 2 more days. And then finally he told the disciples, hey, you know what? It's time. We got to go back. But by the time they arrived, Lazarus had actually been dead for 4 whole days. Mm-hmm. So he walks into town and Martha is ticked off, ticked off. She told Jesus exactly what she thought. And, in the Bible, it's kind of like, well, if you had been here, he would not have died. I really don't think it was quite that way. I think it was more like, if you showed up when you were supposed to and you had been here, you could have taken care of this and we would not be going through this. Where have you been? She was mad. And sometimes we get mad, and that's okay. Mary, and actually I just noticed this today. Some of you who dig deep might have already noticed it and be like, this is baby stuff. You should have noticed this before. But Mary was normally glued to Jesus' side. Martha was, like, hey, come do the dishes because Jesus is going to be here. You need to get back to work, right? In other stories. But in this particular story, Mary stayed home. So I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but she was so upset, she ignored him. That was the polar opposite of what she would have normally done. And so, of course, in our current world, we can't always be physically present when our friends need us. We want to be there, but we can't. And we also can't bring our friends back. So we can't follow everything, obviously, that Jesus did, but we can follow Jesus' example of how to be a friend to someone who's grieving. So I'd like to talk with you about 6 ways that we can be a little more like Jesus when our people are grieving. So the first one is Jesus showed up. Now, he was late in their opinion, but he was there. So, if somebody is close to you and they're grieving, if you can, try to find a way to show up. Now, if you're cross country, it may not be physically possible for you to be present to show support, but there are tons of ways in today's technological society. We can show up in so many ways. After my sister died, some friends, actually a set of twins that I've been friends with since I was 18. One lives on the East Coast and one lives out west, and they got together and sent chicken soup to my house. And none of us lived near each other, but chicken soup was on my front porch. And you can find a company that sends soup or sends whatever you want to send. That soup happened to be exactly what I needed. And so if you're nearby, offer some real help. Pick the kids up from school, bring food if you can, check with them first to make sure that they don't already have 10 buckets of fried chicken. I don't know, depending on where you are.
If they're Southern Baptists, they will have multiple buckets of fried chicken.
Yeah, I mean, we live in Virginia, and when my mother-in-law died, it was like every person who showed up with a bucket of chicken. And, the thought absolutely counted, but fried chicken, you can only eat it so many meals. So, cut the lawn, do something to help, depending on how close you are with this person. Sending messages is usually better than calling, unless you're already in the habit of calling them every day. After my sister passed, we had messages from all over the place as her friends found out and then started trying to kind of deal with it and find out what happened and things like that. And a couple of people called, and they absolutely were grieving, but it was very difficult for me to be supporting my close family members, my parents and my brother, and dealing with doctors and things like that, because we were still at the hospital while on the phone. So just keep in mind that, the person who is grieving may have other responsibilities that they have to do. And so calling is not necessarily the best option unless you're best friends and this is something you do every day. But, asking is always good too. Hey, do you want me to call, or would you rather I just text you? So keep in mind also that the influx of people in personal space can be exhausting. So sharing that grief load, being there with them is important, but we also have to pay attention to when we need to back up a little bit.
So that's number one. Number two.
That is number one.
All right.
So number one is show up. Number two, Jesus did not judge Mary or Martha for yelling at him and ignoring him. He didn't let their actions affect his response to them. And so what I would say is, try to suspend judgment. People react in different ways, and sometimes people really freak out when they're under a heavy load of grief, and they're going to say and do things. I know that I did. We say and do things that we later regret, or sometimes we just don't talk, and because we just can't handle it. So don't take it personally. Just don't base your opinion about that person on something that happened in the moments or hours, honestly, days, weeks, or months after a loss. We never know what's triggering a memory. We never know what's triggering some feeling. And so, if your friend or your family member is acting crazy, give them a little grace. And it's hard. It's not easy when someone comes at you to back up and just take it. But that's really what we have to learn to do. And Jesus did. And honestly, I alternated between Mary and Martha after my sister passed. Some days I was really bad at God and I let him know about it. And some days I didn't like talking to him. And, it's hard to listen to somebody that you feel like could have fixed it. And so, Martha was like, man, you could have showed up. Why didn't you? And so I really did struggle with that after my sister died. It's like, you could have prevented all this and you could have made this completely different. And I still don't think that I will ever understand what happened or why. But I never felt like God had walked away from me in the moments when I didn't feel like listening to my Bible. Prior to my sister dying, my audio Bible is on my phone and I listen to it a lot. And, I tend to put it on and then just let it play while I'm doing things. And for months after she died, I just couldn't. And then I listened to Ecclesiastes a lot for weeks on end. Everything is worthless. Everything is useless. Nothing matters anymore. And then slowly, we got back into the rhythm of I can hear his voice once more. So again, just don't judge the people who are going through the grief. Try to give them a little space and try to understand what they're going through. All right. So number 3, he skipped the platitudes. He did not stand there and talk about how Lazarus was in a better place. He's no longer hurting. He's not sick anymore. I mean, honestly, Jesus didn't say much at all. And, I've said some of those things. And even after my sister passed away, I've said some of these things, even though they annoyed me when people said things about her. Like, I know that I, in my opinion, I shouldn't be saying them, but they still just kind of pop out of your mouth sometimes. But it's weird because those statements kind of made me mad, because then I felt guilty for being sad that the person I love is no longer with me, because obviously they're happier. So if I want them back here with me, does that make me mean? Like, so try to think of things that are true, because it may be true that they're in a better place, but that's not helpful. So try to say something true. Like, I can see that your heart is broken. I am so sorry that you're hurting. We're going to miss him so much. Think of things that are true that are also going to feel supportive to the
comforting.
person. Yeah, comfort versus, just saying what pops into our heads. And again, it's hard, and people understand when we, say those things. And it's also okay to say, you know what, I'm sorry. I know that wasn't really helpful. I apologize. How can I, what can I do? Can I just give you a hug? If you're a hugger. If you're not, it's really okay. Also, if they're not a hugger, it's okay if they don't want you to hug them. So keep that in mind. It's difficult for me being a hugger. All right. So number 4, Jesus sympathized. That verse again, Jesus wept. He knew he was going to bring Lazarus back to life, and still he wept along with them. And there are a lot of reasons for that, I think, and that's probably a conversation for another day. But if you think about the fact that he cried. I mean, wept is not just like he was sniffing. He was really deeply, deeply
Grieved.
saddened and grieving and crying aloud with these people. He wanted them to know they weren't alone, that he felt their pain. And I am not suggesting that you go to, a funeral and be the wailer or whatever. But, if you've been through something similar, it's okay to say, I've been where you are. I remember the pain. I think, honestly, the most comforting thing that anyone has said to me is, I lost my sibling also, and I understand what that means. So they didn't say, I know what you're feeling, but they said, I understand what it means. And
Big
that
difference.
it was huge, and it was so helpful. And sympathizing doesn't mean, you're going to get through this because I did. Those kinds of statements, we kind of want to encourage people that it's going to get better, but in the moment of the grief, again, try to sympathize versus, express the sympathy. Don't try to coach them through it at this point. And then the other thing is, when you are expressing that sympathy, do be a little careful about the comparisons. So like right after my sister died, someone started talking about how they understood how deeply saddened I was. And then I suddenly realized that they were talking about how they felt when their dog died. And I knew this person was absolutely coming from a place of just wanting to make it better and wanting to connect and wanting to comfort me. But I sort of just wanted to walk away because I was like, oh my gosh, like that's not a comparison. So don't, like, if you haven't been through this difficulty, it's also okay not to try to say, I understand it, because you might not understand exactly what they're going through, and that's okay too. So if you have been through something, absolutely, let them know that you get it. But again, just let them know, hey, I understand that you are in pain and you are hurting, and I'm here for you. So again, Jesus sympathized with them.
Becky, before you go to number 5, let me make a brief announcement.
Sure.
Folks, normally we would be out of time 2 minutes ago, but Dale Didway is on the road, and he called me this afternoon, and he will be with us tomorrow night. So Becky, we do have some extra time, but I didn't mean to interrupt, but I didn't want.
No, you're
you
fine.
To feel, okay. Go
I
ahead.
thought I guess I wasn't. My timer is not the correct one. So if
You're
we do
fine.
this again, if you have me back, I will have to learn better how to keep time.
You're doing fine. Preach on, sister.
So number 5 is offer the help you can offer. Jesus offered the best help. We can't offer that. We can't, come in and say, let me bring your friend or your family member back. It is just not a help that we can provide. Sometimes the best help that we can provide is staying out of the way. Offer to help, and if you are a close friend or family member and you are sure what to do, go ahead and do that. If you aren't sure what to do, maybe instead of approaching the person who's grieving, look for someone peripheral. When my husband's good friend died, I texted his wife, to let her know I was thinking about her, praying for her, but another good friend of theirs really was the contact for, hey, what can we do to help? Is this a good time to bring some food over or whatever? So I would highly recommend. That was so helpful, having her to be available, because I didn't feel like I was intruding on my friend. And so I would say, if you are that close friend, then, let others know, hey, reach out to me instead of this person, so that we can surround them and comfort them without overwhelming them. If you aren't that close, again, check with the person who is, and then also just be careful not to insert yourself in a situation that you wouldn't normally be in. I think it's our human nature to want to support people and help people when they're in grief, but it can be super overwhelming. There were a couple of people who had really reached out in a long time, and then suddenly they're texting like a lot, and it was sweet, but it wasn't. It was kind of one of those things where it felt like this person hasn't really reached out in a long time, and I have a feeling they're not going to reach out again. And I don't think that they meant anything by it, or I don't think that they would have meant anything negative. It was just human nature to like, hey, right now I'm thinking about this, so I'm going to check in on you a lot. But it was a little overwhelming. So if you normally would be at this person for days on end, be at the person's house for days on end to support them, help take care of their kids, whatever. But if you wouldn't, don't. There are tons of ways to offer help without getting into personal space, causing that person who is grieving to feel like they have to extend, or rather expend, a lot of energy. Because truly, if you are the person who's grieving and you have 10 people in your house, you still feel like you have to take care of the people in your house, especially if that's your normal, role in life. And so it's important to help in a way that really, truly helps. Someone actually gave us, when we were in Brooklyn, someone gave us a card that allowed us to have food delivered or picked up. And that was amazing because we no longer had to try to figure out what we were going to do for meals. It wasn't really about the money even. It was just, hey, this is so easy. All we have to do is go to the website and order the food, and it's going to show up. It was incredible because we didn't have the brain power for anything else. If there's a food delivery option, depending on where you live, if you're out in a rural county, it might not be. It might be up to you to go drop off the casserole like it was in the old days. But if you live in the city, there are tons of services that will deliver food. So again, ask peripheral people who are assisting that grieving person how you can help in some way. And then 6, Jesus did not talk them to death. And so I'm going to take a cue from this one and wrap up quickly. But sometimes the best thing we can do is show up and shut up.
There you go.
Be there.
Be there.
And I am here if you need me, but I'm not going to talk to you unless you need me to talk to you. Just go sit near your friend or family member and be quiet. If they want to talk, that's great. If they don't, just be with them. And we had people who did that for us many times as we've lost people through the years. And it's been just so comforting. So I would say that would be the 6th thing. So just to do a quick recap, I'm scrolling through my points real fast here to find number 1, because I don't have these memorized. So show up like Jesus. Don't judge your friends. Suspend judgment. Sympathize. Skip the platitudes. Offer the best help you can offer, and show up and shut up.
There you go. All right. Well, moving on to something more happy, I guess. I appreciate all the comments in the chat room. You all are very special. It is the PJNet family, and we do have some first-time guests in our chat room that we welcome. Awesome. We're glad you're here, and we hope that you will come back often. We do this Monday through Thursday. Starting at 9 p.m. We usually have 2 guests, but tonight we have 1, so we have some extra time. I want to use that extra time, Becky, to talk about your ministry on Facebook, because I was curious when I got an invitation and joined the 540 Facebook, 540, and yes. I didn't know if that was chapter 5, verse 40, of some book in the Bible or what, but how did the name 540, what is the significance of 540?
So it's funny that you say about the Bible, because I actually went looking for all of the verses in the Bible that had 540 anywhere in them, just in case one of them fit. None of them worked, but it was fun. But actually, several years ago, I was at a writing conference, and one of the speakers mentioned that if you write 540 words a day, then it will take you just under 6 months to complete a 100,000 word draft. So especially if you're a fiction writer, you really need a draft that's 100,000 words. And so that gives you plenty of space to edit out things. And so pretty soon after that, I was having conversations with friends about what kept them from going to writing conferences. And there were so many barriers to being able to attend a writing conference. And I really felt strongly that I needed to find a resource for my friends who couldn't go, because the writing conferences helped me in so many ways. And so I started looking, and I really couldn't find what I wanted. I did not want, and I did not set out to start a group. I actually was hoping to find a group that I could refer my friends to, and never was able to find exactly what I wanted. There are tons of great groups out there, but most of the really, really good ones do have some costs, and part of the concern is finances can be an issue. And so I was praying about it one day, just, hey God, can you kind of lead me to the right place to help my friends? And I sort of felt that little nudge, like, hey, you need to do this. And so I reached out to a few of my friends, and we decided that we would form we called it the 540 Club at the time. I think there were 5 of us. And I really thought we were just going to email each other encouragement and, hey, keep writing, you can do this kind of thing. And then we all started inviting our friends, and then it quickly grew, and suddenly it went from email to, hey, we need a Facebook group. So I am terrible at keeping up with Facebook group stuff or really social media at all. I try, and I drop off after like 3 days. So I told them, I said, if we're going to do this, I need some help. Would anybody like to help run this group? And some really fabulous people have stepped up and have remained faithful. And it's just been incredible keeping that group talking and interacting. And then, I can drop my comments in when I have a moment, but I also didn't want it to be the Becky show. I'm not interested in that. And so I want other people to be posting all the time and talking. And so it's been great. So pretty soon after that, we were about 50 people, and somebody said, it would be great if we could have a meeting. And I said, that sounds fun, but it's going to have to be every week, because otherwise I will not remember when to show up. So I talked to them, and we figured Thursday nights were the best for everybody who was at that meeting. So we just picked Thursday at 7, and that's been our meeting time since last year. I think we just passed a year of having online meetings every week. The exception would be, just occasionally, but pretty much every week we have meetings. And at first we just did write-ins, which, if you're not familiar with a write-in, we all sign in online and we talk for a few minutes and then turn our cameras off and write. And so that was how it started. And then soon after, I can't remember which conference it was, but soon after our conference, I had an idea to reach out to some of the speakers and just see if they might be interested in donating some time to help teach. And so we've had a number of really great speakers. One of our most committed supporters has been Larry Leach. He's from the get-go just really committed to teaching the next generation of writers and editors. And so he comes every 6 weeks approximately to speak to us about different topics. And so all of these people who speak, they're all donating their time. They're all very committed to helping raise up people who can write clearly. And that's our goal. At this point, we no longer try to write 540 words a day, because not everyone can do that. So it's definitely not a requirement. We did have one of our founding members actually did it, and she completed her draft. We were so excited. And we've had a number of other people who have completed drafts that way, but But for the most part, it's more about having a consistent writing practice. So we have write-ins Monday night, Tuesday, and Wednesday mornings, and then we have the meeting on Thursday, and it's all free. And
it's a pretty resourceful page. I'm not a writer, but I seem to get involved with them, and that's quite a tightly knit group. Next step is something that seldom happens. You go from a Facebook group. Now you're looking at doing a website around this idea.
Yeah, I would love to have a website that's just full of resources. So that's the goal of the next step. And basically, I am one of the least techie people I know. So everything that I learned to do, I have to learn to do. So it takes me a little longer sometimes to get things done. We record all of our sessions, and that's been something that I have committed to my 540 community, that I will get them posted somewhere so people can watch them, because it's, all of the speakers are donating their time, and it is their livelihood for a lot of them. So I don't want to just post it out in the middle of the internet. So that's been one thing that we've been trying to figure out how to do, is to securely post those, and then of course to have resources available. One of our other members compiled a list of all the contests and conferences, and so that's been an incredible resource, because people now know, hey, I can send in my piece to this contest, or hey, I'm going to attend this virtual conference that I had no idea even existed. So the group is truly amazing. I am just floored every day, and I'm so thankful that God has allowed me to be a part of it. I just watch in awe at everything that happens. It's incredible. But our main mission is to make education and encouragement accessible for every writer. So no matter where you are, no matter who you are, if you want to write, if you think you're a writer, you think you might be a writer, we want to help you find that and communicate clearly the message that God has given you for the one reader who needs to hear it. Because not every book is going to be a bestseller, but you have a story in you for a reason. Someone needs to hear it, and that's really important.
Becky, from inauspicious beginnings, it has flourished, and it's quite a vibrant resource, and focused on things that are free or it's a good idea, folks. I expect the membership of the 540 Facebook group to go up because of this. But Becky, thanks for sharing. I'm glad we had some extra time, and we hope you'll come back. I hope you'll visit our chat room and say hello to all your friends there who have made some very nice remarks about you.
Oh, I love you guys.
We love you too. Thank you, Becky Antkowiak. Yeah, I did it. Becky, that's the hard part. All right. Well, folks, as I mentioned earlier, Dale Didway, who would normally be on the air at this point, is traveling. He was not held up, not bang, bang, give me your money held up, but he was a little delayed doing all of his book signings. He knew he was going to be busy. We anticipated it, but we've arranged to have him tomorrow night at 9:30. So I hope that you'll make your plans to be here. Check the schedule at pjnet.tv. It's right, well, it was right there, but it's always over there. See it? Yeah. And, well, folks, that'll wrap it up for me tonight. I'm looking forward to doing this again and again. It's always a pleasure to fulfill the mission. Our mission statement is, we provide a platform for everyday Christians to share their walk with Christ. How good is that? Can't get much better. And it's fun. Thank you again for all of you who attend our PJNet live chat room at pjnet.tv. You are our family. You are the lifeblood that makes this, well, keep some of the focus off of me. And I enjoy reading the chat as soon as we get off the air. My parting remarks as I prepare to leave and start some more. By the way, we're working on something secret again. Yeah, always a secret. but I've been up all night until 6 in the morning for the past 2 or 3 nights, engineering a solution. Our replacement camera, by the way, remember that defective camera that we were going to have up by now? Well, the replacement has come in, so I get to see if maybe the new one actually works. So it's going to be a long night. I look forward to it. I can't wait. But before I leave you with a challenge in the form of 2 questions. Here we go. What is the boldest thing that you have ever done for Jesus Christ? The second question is, how long ago was that? The challenge is to never be satisfied with either answer.